So to get to our 6-figure grid, we have our 1 kilometer square, which is 1,000 meters, and we need to break that up again into smaller 100-meter sections. So we have to use a little bit of imagination, and we have to count along there to up to the number 10, and we have to count up here again to 10, and thus breaking this up into a much finer grid. So we have 1 to 10 going up there and 1 to 10 going there. Now this can be a little hit and miss, but the easiest way to remember is where the center point would be. That would be 5. So that would always be 5. Now I'm drawing on a map. I don't normally draw on maps. So there we go. There's our 5. Halfway 5, and the principle is exactly the same. Even when you get down to the 100-meter square, it's always the bottom left hand corner that you're identifying. What you can see is a grid square broken down into 100-meter sections, and again, if you look at the green square which is highlighted, that comes in at 6, 3. So you use the first two numbers of your 4-figure grid reference, and then you add 6, and then you use the second 2 figures of your grid reference and add 3. And that is how this works. That is how this system works. So you just break it down in smaller and smaller and smaller grids. Well, I'll explain more about that later, but there you go. This is an example of breaking down the box to 100 meters. There we go. There's our grid square all focused in on, and let's find something now that we can help us identify our 6-figure grid. There's some prominent things going on in there, but what I want to do first of all is make something nice and easy. Let's identify the footbridge. Okay, can you see the footbridge? Footbridge identified there, but it's actually there over the river. So we're going to get the 6-figure grid for that location there. Now we did know it was 3701. Now if you was to imagine that square broken up now in smaller sections of to 100 squares, you have to count along until you think you've come to the right number. So which square do you think that would be in? So let's have a look, shall we? So that's our halfway point, so it's 5, so it's definitely below 5. It's sort of between 2 and 3. So I'm looking at our bridge there, and I'm going to say, you may disagree, it's entirely up to you, that is going to be 372. 372. And I'm going to go up, and I'm going to say 015. Now I think that footbridge is that grid reference 6-figure 372015. You could disagree with that, but that's what I think it is, and that's what I would plot on my map. I would be within 100 meters of that footbridge, and that is as accurate you can be with a 6-figure grid. Now I want you to have a look now, and I want you on your own to look at the campsite, and we're going to put the campsite literally in the center of the triangle. So I want you to look at that grid reference, and I want you to tell me what you think that grid reference is. Okay, I've got that again, as 372,014. So I've actually dropped it slightly because it's slightly lower than the footbridge, and I think it's down in the fourth square. So 372,014. Let's try something else. Let's try this point of the wood here where the footpath meets the wood. What do you think that could be? Press pause, have a look. Okay, I'm going for 375,014. It's on the same parallel line as the campsite, but it's much further out. And if I look at our guide, which is our halfway point, which is number 5, then I would say that's in the 5th grid square, so that is in a 100 meter square there. So 375,014. Okay, let's look at one more then, just to finish off, so as we can get the 6-figure grid into our heads. Let's look at B home. What would you say that would be? Press pause if you need to. Okay, I'm going to comment on that one. I'm going to say that is 370,019. Now the reason I say 0 is because it isn't touching the actual grid line, but it is within the first square. Now the first square, remember, would be 1. So if it was in this next square, it would be 1, 2. It would be in the second one. So that's why it's not 1. The corner is not 1. The corner is 0. 0, 1. Well, that is not 1. That is in 0. So 370,019, because it's in the last square before the 10th line. Okay? 370,019. And that is a perfect, probably about 100 meter square anyhow. So there you go, that is a 6-figure grid. You can break that box down even further. You can go 8, 12-figure grids, and you can literally get down onto the meter. It's all about reducing that grid down into 100 meter sections, then 10 meter sections, and then 1 meter sections, and eventually you'll get absolutely bang on. Do you need to be that accurate? Well, that depends on what you're doing, doesn't it? And whether you're looking for a small RV point, a small checkpoint with just a guy in a bivvy on the top of a mountain, nipped away behind a little wall, so you'll never see him unless you get your accuracy bang on. So those are the important things. If you're walking around big open moorland, no, you probably don't need to be that accurate. You can see what's coming anyhow. So there you go, 6-figure grid. You can break it down smaller and smaller and smaller until you get down to 1 meter, even smaller than that if you wish, but why would you? And that's how it works. That's a principle. Everything works on grids, everything works in breaking it down into hundreds. So you should now be able to take a 6-figure grid reference and get you within 100 meters anywhere on the map. Let's move on. Well, we've got to talk about distances before we go any further, because we can't fill a route card in if we don't know how far we've gone. Now, we do already know that things like this with the little wheels on that I mentioned earlier, that one's not particularly any use to me because it's the wrong scale for this map and no good to me at all. But you do need to know how far is you're going to walk accurately, so you can set your time to when you're going to turn up, when your estimated time of arrival is ETA. So what is that? Oh, how fit are you? As a young man running around in the army, I think we looked at 4k an hour. We added about 10 minutes for every 100 metre to climb, I think. I can't remember now. That's all irrelevant now. It doesn't make any difference. It's gone. Those days have gone. So if I want to take an extra half an hour to go up a 100 metre climb, then I will do. And as long as I know in my head how long that's going to take me extra, I can add that to my time appreciation, and I can adjust my time, estimated time of arrival too. So don't be too tied up in what the book says. Your level of fitness is going to determine how long you're going to take. And don't kid yourself either. Give yourself plenty of time. If you give yourself a bigger window and not try and cut it too fine, then you'll enjoy the walk. if you're up against a clock all the time, you're not going to enjoy the walk. And the whole thing is about enjoying it in the first place. So unless you're doing an orienteering challenge, or you're racing up against a buddy or a mate, then fair enough. But if you're just going for a leisurely walk across the mountains and fells and hills, then give yourself plenty of time. Don't put yourself under pressure that's unnecessary. Okay? But how do we do it? Let's get you down onto the map and show you a nice trick, nice little easy way of getting the correct distance. Okay? Let's go. Now then, what we have is earthquake water, and around that lake is a road, and I'm going to tell you within pretty much a few hundred meters how long that road is. What we need is a bit of paper. Now if you're out in the sticks and you don't have a bit of paper, then you need to take your best guess. But if you're here planning your route like you should be, then you find your start point. And in this case, I'm going to put it on that junction here, and I'm going to line up that road, that part of the road, until it starts to bend. So now I'm going to put a tick there. From that bend I'm going to turn it. I'm going to put a tick there. From that bend I'm going to turn my paper and find the straightest line, and I'm going to put a tick there. From that bend, you get the drift? Okay, now we have our distance in one straight line, and I've gone all the way around the lake, lots of bends and lots of curves. So now I go down to our scale, find our kilometres, there we are. So there's our kilometres there. 5. Seven. We've got a little bit left. All we need to do now is drop that on our 100 meter intervals. 1, 2, 3 and a half. So using that method, I can tell you that around that lake is 7.35 kilometers. Now let's go back and have a look at it again. I'm looking at the contours. I'm seeing what I can see there, and we don't really raise 85 meters, 69 meters. I'm looking at these spot heights. Let me bring you into a spot height. Okay, spot heights then, we can see two here. We can see a 72 spot height, and if you look closer you can see a 69 spot height over here as well. Over in this corner here you've got 85 meters, all reference to above sea level. So to get around our lake itself, there is no more than 10 meters undulating ground up and down, so really that's not a lot of ground at all or anything to cover. So we're looking at our 7.35 kilometers all the way around the lake. We're now going to decide how fast we're going to walk around it. Well, like I said many moons ago, it may have been 4k an hour, but I'm going to knock that down to 3 kilometers per hour now. So my wife and I are going to have a walk around this lake at 3 kilometers per hour, and at 7.35 kilometers, what's that? In roughly speaking, we're talking 2 hours 15 minutes. 2 hour 15, maybe 2 hours 20, something like that. You know, being realistic, Just give yourself 2 hours 20 minutes to get round this lake. More than ample. Like I say, you might want to stop for a brew, you might want to do that, but there you go, 2 hours 15 minutes to walk around this lake. No climb really, good road conditions, you're not walking through swamps or anything like that, and ideal. And there we go. That is a simple distance recording, and using your ability and your fitness levels to decide how long it is going to take you. And that is personal, down to you. I can't tell you how fast you're going to walk. Well, we can start filling one of these in now. Now you will have noticed that I haven't really covered bearings yet, apart from general directions. And we'll come on to that later. That's not for now. Let's look at where we're going to go. I've decided what we're going to do. I know I've chosen a quick route, and the plan is in the morning we're going to get on the bus. I'm going to drive down Troutbeck Bridge, come up towards Troutbeck, and we're going to get dropped off there. And from Troutbeck we're going to walk over the top of Wainstill Pike and down into Ambleside, just in time for tea and biscuits. And that is the route that we're going to walk today. So from Troutbeck over Wainstill Pike down into Ambleside. Now, how we get to that start point is irrelevant, but that's what we're going to do. What's the first thing we need to do? Well, start point. Where's a good start point there? So a good start point for us would be where the footpath actually meets the road. And initially then what we need to do is fill in our form details at the top. Okay, so here we go. Start date, let's say 25th 11/17. Finish date 25th 11/17. Number of cards 1 of, let's have a look. Should we need 2 cards? No, we can do this in 1 card, 1 of 1. Number in the group. I'm going to go with somebody, so we're going to say 2 in this particular case. Contact details as before, mobile telephone number as before, home telephone number for media contact details as already explained. An emergency kit I'm going to have with me. Well, I'm definitely going to have my first aid kit. I'm going to have my emergency survival bag again. 24 hours food, water, GPS, phones. So all that information we're filling in, so when we drop this off with somebody, they know what we've got with us. So let's look then at filling this in. The first grid reference, we're going to use a 6-figure grid reference, and don't forget, it is important to think back to the first lesson. We need to find the code. Remember the letters in the bottom of the map? In this case, it's November Yankee. So the first part of our grid reference is, once we put this on once, we don't need to do it anymore until we change it again. So November Yankee 410034. 410034. That's my first grid reference. Now we're going to go from this grid reference, and we want to go to a prominent feature, which would be a fork in the path itself. Let's just zoom in on that. There we are. So there you go, you can see a prominent fork. So we come up from here, walk up here, and there's a fork in the road. That would be a good point to do a navigational check. So what is that grid reference? We're going to 402 04 0. Four zero two 040. It's within the first 100 meters. What is it? Fork in road, fork in path. Climb. Okay, we need to know now how far we're going to climb. We already start at 186 meters. And we will be climbing up to the closest contour line is 355. So we start at 186 and we end up at 355. That is a difference of 169 meters. So we will be climbing 169 meters. Distance. We get a little card out now. Have a look at that. And take that from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1.2k. 1.2 kilometers. Now if we set off at 8 o'clock in the morning, we are walking 1.2 kilometers. We are gaining 169 meters. So it's a good, quick uphill struggle right from the word go. I'm going to put me down 45 minutes. So 0, 8:45. Remarks. So that footpath is open on the left and it's a stone wall on the right. So in that particular scenario then, we start off a general heading, which is going to be west. So head west, up footpath, wall on right hand side. Now there is no other footpaths, there is no other features up that walk except the fact there is a boundary, but the fork is the first prominent feature that you come to. And that's going to be quite important. So you know, and gives you confidence, you know exactly where you are, okay? So the confidence check as well is the fact that you can just keep walking up that footpath and there is no other footpaths until you get to the fork in the footpath. And you have to be at that one spot. Alright. Let's look at the second phase. We're now moving from that footpath. Have I got that grid? Yeah, I've got that grid. We're moving now. We're going to take the left hand fork and we're going to follow the footpath up to the summit of Wansfell Pike. Okay, so leg 2 from 402 040 up to 395 042. Climb. Now we're going up to 482 meters. So from our 355 up to 482 is 127 meters. Distance. I'm not really going to go too mad about distance. It's pretty much in a straight line with a slight kink on it. So I'll take it as we'll go as a crow flies with that, add an extra 100 meters. We'll put that, then we'll find a clear grid square to make it easier for ourselves. And that works out about 900 meters. So just short of a K. 900 meters. How long are we going to take to go up there? Well, now then, despite it being a relatively uniform climb, I'm going to give us half an hour. Why not? Let's have half an hour. Be generous. 30 minutes. So 0845 plus 30 is 0995. 9:15. So I'm giving us enough time now to get to the summit. Okay, description. Look, I know you get the drift now. You have to keep going, you keep filling the information in, and it can be as accurate as you can possibly be. We haven't covered bearings, and we've only really talked about which direction we're heading on. That's because we've not really covered the compass at all. And it's important that you know how to use a compass really before you start diving in that world, because if you use it wrong, you could end up wandering off in completely the wrong direction. Now I use a Mills compass, but it also has degrees on it as well. Now the standard compass for anyone that you buy in the shop is going to be a degrees, where I prefer Mills because I was trained with Mills. I've always used Mills, although we do use degrees every now and again for certain aspects, but Mills it is. It makes no difference. It's just a more accurate, a lot more numbers as opposed to the degrees, and that's the only reason we're using. There's 6,400 mils as opposed to 360 degrees, and that's the difference. That's all it is. It's just more numbers to play with. Now, compass, silver compass, military silver compass. What am I doing with that? Well, I found it just after I left the military. I found it, so I've still got one. There's nothing wrong with a silver compass, nothing at all. These compasses are fantastic. I think you can buy one for about £12. There are lots of different types of compass, prismatic compasses, all sorts, more accurate, route finders. There's an abundance of different type of compasses out there. And you know, despite having the Commander's compass, which was a beautiful military issue prismatic compass, I had it in my kit and it stayed in my kit. I never used it once in all my years. All I ever used was that. That's all I ever needed. I didn't need anything else. I know how to use one of these little beauties, so I couldn't, not going to say couldn't go wrong, but I knew how to use it and I understood it, and therefore I had a much better chance of not going wrong, put it that way. So buy a compass, get used to it, learn it. Learn what the little bits and bobs are. You see there's measurements all over it. Some of them are relevant, some of them can confuse the hell out of you. Some of them you will never ever use. Absolutely fine. That's fine. If you don't ever use them, you don't need to. They're there should you wish to. And we now need to really look at the compass in detail to see what we've really got going on. And let's do that now. So, courtesy of Ordnance Survey, thank you for the picture and also thank you for the following information. Number 1 is the base plate. Number 2 is the compass housing. Number 3 is the compass needle, as if you didn't know. Number 4, though, is the orienting lines. I didn't know they were called that. Number 5 is the orienting arrow, which makes sense when we use that to orientate the map on the ground. And number 6 is the index line. Number 7, the direction of travel arrow. Yeah, we did know that. And number 8, the compass scales. We also knew that too, didn't we? Those are the bits that sometimes you look at them and you get a little bit confused. But there you go. So thank you very much for Ordnance Survey for the picture. And that is some of the details contained within your compass. Let's move on. Now then, see this one here? This here, with the luminous tab on it, is your north pointing needle. The white one will always point south. These 2 white dots down here are important when you're marching on a compass bearing at night, or any other time to that matter. So that will always point north, and this will always point at your compass bearing setting. Okay? And it all works together, and I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you how that works now. Well, I'm going to put this back down on the table, and I'm going to set it to south, and then we're going to adjust the compass so the needle is pointing between the 2 dots, and I know then that we can march on that bearing, and we will be marching south. So we don't need a map for this. This is totally irrelevant. We want to march south. If we look at our compass, we have north, east, south and west. And what I'm going to do, I'll pick my compass up and I'm going to spin my dial regardless of the compass on the inside until the south is pointing, or the south is exactly on. Come on. There you go. So south is on that centre line there. Place that down on the table. Now we're pretty much already there, aren't we? So if we look closely at what's going on, we've placed it on the table, and all I need to do really is just adjust the compass so that those two, there we are, is in between the pair of them. So I've got the two dots there, one there, and then luminous tab in the middle. And as long as I keep that in between them, that direction, that way is south. And I can march now south constantly, forever and ever, in a day. Let's adjust it to west. There we go. That compass is now pointing west. And as long as the luminous bit in the middle there, as long as I keep those together, the luminous bit between the two dots, I will always march west, east. There we go. And there we go. The compass is where I'm marching, the direction arrow from there through there to this arrow to this luminous piece here. I'm walking that way, and those two dots and that luminous bit on the arm there must be in the middle. So at night all you will see is that. And now for the magnetic variation. I told you not to worry about it. If you go on to current British Geological Survey areas and type in your current location or a map location, it will come up with a reading of 1 degree 22 minutes. So 1 degree on this compass, can't even set 1 degree on this compass. So at this moment in time, the magnetic variation, when I say in this moment in time, in 2017, the magnetic variation is 1 degree 22 minutes. It's not even worth thinking about. So don't bother with it right now. Unless you're traveling hundreds of miles, then it pretty much is irrelevant. So at this moment in time, 1 degree, 22 minutes, don't worry about it. Okay? You don't need to make any adjustment. This compass can't adjust that minor anyhow. So you can basically set your compass now from grid to mag, set the bearing, march on that bearing, no requirement for any real magnetic variation to be done because of the distance that it is. Okay? So that's it. You're done. You've made your route card. You've planned your route. Or have you? You can choose a route on the map. You can now do your route card You can fill out your grid references. You can now adjust, not you need to, for your magnetic variation. Now you could, if you wish, set a bearing to your next destination and walk on that. And in some situations that can be extremely dangerous and one of the biggest mistakes you can make. Because between you, your destination, and the bearing that you take could be a whole plethora of obstacles and things in your way. Woods, water, all sorts. So setting a bearing from one destination to another isn't necessarily a good idea over long distances, and it should always be kept as short as possible to enable you to make adjustments when you get to these issues. And you should have a good understanding of your route before you set off anyhow, even if you just do a map recce. Now, I'm going to show you an example of how bad it can be and then how easy it could have been. So let's have a look now at taking a simple bearing to the pub, of course, and trying to get to that pub and the obstacles that can be in our way should you just try and march on a bearing. And then have a look at how we could have done that a different way to prevent us, well, 1, getting tired, 2, getting wet, 3, getting stuck. So let's have a look at what we can do and what we shouldn't do here. Okie dokie then, Lou Rig Fell. We are going to go to this pub here. But at this moment in time, we've just parked up here. We want to go to there. Somebody's told us that we should set a compass bearing and march on that bearing. And we think, yeah, okay, that's a real good idea. We can sort of point away. So here we go. Pub. I'm pointing the right way. I'm going to adjust now my compass so it lines up with the blue grid lines. I don't need to make a magnetic variation because it's too small at the moment. And now, should I wish to march on that, it's that way. Now, would that be a good idea? Hell no. So no, that wouldn't be a good idea, because the first thing we've got to do is fight our way through the caravan park, then over this mound, and then over this wall. We just skip the turn to our left, so it's not too bad. But then we get to this really steep bank with a stone wall, so we've got to go over the stone wall. Then we've got this wooded area with no footpath running through it, and that's a really steep hill. So up we go the steep hill. We're heading towards our pub, and we're on our way now. Here we go. Yep, very rocky, very steep. There, whoa, pick up a little footpath. We see a little footpath there. Whoopie-doo, great stuff. Let's keep going, shall we? Oh yeah, straight through a little tarn. So now we're on a very flat area on top of this Lurig Fell, and it's flat and marshy, so we're going to get really wet feet, and we're going to get piss wet through as we head across over all this ground, and it's not going to be fun at all. Here we go, we keep moving now. Let's keep in the picture. There we are, there's our destination. So we keep coming across, yep, up we go again, little knoll. So up the hill, down the hill. It's only a 30-metre climb, but it's a short, steep one. And then down we go, down to the 216 spot height. Down again, keep going down over this. Yeah, it's dropping very quickly. Through a wood now, onto a stone wall, through to a wood, parking space there, and then we should be able to see the pub and onto the pub. So it is feasible, it is possible to do that route on a bearing. You could do it. It would be extremely dangerous, it would be extremely uncomfortable, it's very, very difficult to do and not a lot of fun. The fences and walls you'd have to climb over to. By the time you got to the pub, the only thing you're going to be doing is going to bed. You're not going to be having a drink. What could we have done? Well, let's start back at the car park. Let's follow this little footpath round. There's a footpath through the caravan park onto a B road. That B road then drops onto another footpath which contours the very base of the hill. So there's a steep bank to your left and flatter, although it is on a slight slope, down to your right. You pick up another footpath and you follow that along here. Two options here now. You can go left or you can go right. personally looking at this, I would go left. I would go left, follow this footpath across here. You're still not on any road, you're still on a footpath, you've still got a steep banking to your left. You are climbing hills slightly, but you're not gaining too much height. And then we start to drop back down again on a footpath, pick up a few buildings to the right, pick up a B road, keep going along the B road, big steep hill to your left, flat valley bottom to your right. You keep going along that B road, you come up just 50 meters before a bridge, turn left and you end up at the pub. That's the route to take. That's how you would do it. Or despite not marching on that bearing, you are still heading in that general direction. So if you wanted to stop check at any time that you were actually marching down the right footpath and the right road, you could still do that. You could still check that you were marching down the right road by placing the compass on there, lining up your grid lines, and then setting your compass to the right angle and enabling you to then carry on marching. So that's how you would do that, okay? So you're pretty much nearly done. You've had a look at the map. You've had a look at the route you want to take. You've had a look at the path. You've had a look at the obstacles in your way. And you've chosen a sensible route to get there. You then take out your route card and you start filling in your details. Once you've filled in your details, you then hand it to somebody and say, listen mate, if you don't hear from me by such and such a time, something's gone wrong and you need to act on it. Okay, do you know what to do? Yes I do. Great. Again, we've moved on quite a way from where we started. In this session, we've orientated our maps. We've looked at how we can use features around the countryside, put them onto our map, identify them on our map, and locate ourselves using that way. Orientating the map is a vital key for that. We've also looked at six-figure grids quickly, not difficult at all. We've confirmed that we know how to look at contours and how to get them 3D pictures in our mind. I think now what you should do really, me personally, what I would do if I was in your situation right now, I would get a map, get a compass and have a play and practice planning a few routes and then walk on one. See how accurate you got it. See how close you were to the mark. See if what you thought you were going to see is actually there. Because remember, if you've not done a recce and you've only doing your route card, you will have written follow path from car park, keep the woods to your left, because that's what you're expecting to see. Was you right when you got there? Was the wood cut down recently? But the evidence is still there that it was a wood. You know, do that. Build your confidence up. Don't ever set foot outside your house without one of these. Don't ever set foot outside your house without one of these. These are fantastic. They always will be, and they'll always get better and better and better. But they will also let you down. These maps and these compasses won't. So I'm warning you now. Heed what I tell you. At the start of the video, matey didn't have a clue where he was going, did he? But the lads were following on behind him because he's sorting it out, not them. That's dangerous. I'm going to end this video with a true story. I do like my stories, but this one isn't a funny one. Myself and two other guys decided to do Ben Nevis one long weekend. We gave ourselves a window of opportunity, but the weather wasn't going to be that good, but we thought we'd go for it anyhow. We planned, prepped, made our arrangements. I did all my route planning. I had my route cards, I had my maps, folded maps, route cards on the back, opened up, route cards at home. I had my GPS with me, with my route plans on it, so on waypoints, and everything was as good as I could possibly do. We were going the CMD route. Don't know if you know Ben Nevis at all. You've got two main routes up Ben Nevis if you're a walker, and that is donkey track or the CMD route. The CMD route is a knife point ridge that follows around the north side of Ben Nevis, picks up the north face and takes you up to the summit. You can either start at the base of the CMD route, or you can go halfway up the donkey track, turn left, go around to the climber's hut, and from the climber's hut move up into the CMD route and then approach the north face from that direction. That's the way we chose to do. And as we set off, like you do, lots of people going our way, and more noticeably was a family, mum, dad, Thomas and his sister, and I really wish I could remember the little sister's name because it becomes quite important later. Thomas had a habit of going too far ahead of his dad, so his dad would shout out to him, "Thomas, get back here. Thomas, slow down." And you thought to yourself, he's getting a grip, but Thomas is getting on my nerves because he's having to say it to Thomas quite a lot. What would Thomas be, 13 maybe? 13, 14 years old? Anyway, I was getting rather annoyed at Thomas, and I thought, I am going to say something in a minute to that young man and tell him, does he actually understand where he's going and what he's doing? And more importantly, go and listen to his dad, who's back there, telling him to wait for him. But I didn't. Maybe I should, but I didn't. Kept myself to myself and kept out of it. Anyway, that was a mistake. We got to the point where we were going to go left round to the climber's hut, and Thomas and his family were going to go continue up the donkey track. As we got round to the climber's hut, the weather started to deteriorate, and it started to get pretty bad actually. The rain started to fall, the wind started to pick up, but we was in quite a sheltered area, so we didn't really notice it. As we got up to the top of the CMD route, however, the wind was now minimum of 60 miles an hour, and we were taking some holding on to get there. We could see back into the valley, we could see back down into the climber's hut. There was nobody coming our way. Nobody. It was just us three going that way that day. And at that moment in time, it got worse. A lot worse. And we then sat together and as a group decided what we were going to do. Were we going to continue, or were we going to sack it and go back down? Now, we had all the gear with us. We could have stayed on the mountain that night. We had everything we needed. We had plenty of food, plenty of shelter, plenty of warmth, plenty of everything. We could have survived on the mountain that evening without really a drama. We decided to go for it. So what we got, and we carried on walking towards the north face. As we got to the base of the north face, there seems to be like a ladder thing going on, and some poles and the boulders, it spreads out, and there's like these big boulders and poles for ropes to be attached to and ladders to be attached to, because it's quite a difficult climb during the winter. But however, these big boulders at the time didn't seem to offer us much of a problem. We just kept going. I thought at one moment I could hear somebody shout for help. So I stopped the lads and said, right, listen, I heard somebody scream. Our standard operating procedure at that time was to stop, wait for 5 minutes, listen. If you didn't hear anything, carry on. Didn't hear anything, so we carried on. Remember now, the winds are 60 miles an hour, it's raining, and you also, visibility was down to about 30 feet. You couldn't see anything. We kept going a little bit further. We knew where we were on the map, GPS and map, so together we could figure out where we were. I heard it again, but this time, so did Ian. And we stopped, heard, listened. Yeah, definitely heard something. Definitely heard something. So we got up, shouted back, stay where you are, don't move, stay where you are, we are coming. And eventually, because we could spread out a little bit, we had perhaps 30 metres between us. There was 3 of us, so we had 10 metres that way, 10 metres that way, or 15. You know, we spread out as best we could. I don't know, as far as you could see, for our own safety, and we moved up the north face as best we could. Now, we did hear the screaming getting louder and louder and louder, and we would shout back, and eventually we did find the 2 children. There was a little girl, and she was curled up in a little ball. That little ball was piss wet through, and she wasn't shivering anymore. And there was a lad stood there, shivering. He was very tired too. I looked at him and I said, "Is that you, Thomas?" And he said, "Are you the mountain rescue?" I went, "No, mate. No, I'm not. No." He said, "How do you know me?" I said, "Because I remember you going up the other side earlier today. What on earth are you doing here?" He said, "We've come off the wrong side of the mountain." "Oh, right. Well, anyway, that wasn't he. Thomas was still talking. Thomas was okay. The problem we had was the little girl. Fortunately, we had all the sugar and sweets and hot drinks with us that you can imagine. We were prepared. We had everything we needed with us. So we set her up. Alright, she got my little, I had a buffalo, no, it wasn't a buffalo, I had a softy jacket. I put the softy jacket on it, put a big jacket on her, gave her a hot cup of tea. Also she had some hot chocolate. She had hot chocolate and some jelly babies. I always remember, because I was saving my jelly babies for me, and I had to give them to this girl. Oh well, never mind, man, far more important than me. But she had my jelly babies and sugar and warmth, and we got her going again, and we, rubbing her arms and legs and that to get her going, and she managed to get up. And I looked at my buddy and I said, "We got to go up the hill. We can't go back down." And he went, "Yeah, I know." I said, "Right. Let's just do it. Let's pick her up, go for it. Thomas, how are you?" Thomas was okay. What I failed to notice was with Thomas was that he'd actually... Wait. What I failed to notice was that Thomas actually hurt himself. I didn't notice that immediately. It was only when we got to the top of the mountain that I actually noticed that he hurt himself. He tripped and scarred himself somewhat. Anyway. Initially we carried the little girl up, but then she started to be able to walk, and we got her walking again, and she managed to crawl a little way back up to the top, which was really good. And when we got to the top, we was expecting to see Mum, Dad frantically worrying and running around. "Where's my child? Where's my child? Where are my kids?" There were 2 guys on the trig point. I said, are you looking for the kids?" So I was like, "Aye, are you looking for the kids?" And he went, "Huh?" Nobody was looking for the kids. Nobody. I couldn't believe it. Could not believe it. No signal on the phone. So you couldn't phone anybody. It was just, Ben Nevis has a tendency to do that. And the North Face, no signal. You get to the top sometimes, no signal. It's only until you start descending again can you pick up a signal. The weather was awful. We had to go round to the round to the donkey track again and drop down. Basically, what had happened, that Thomas had gone up in front of his dad, got to the top of the mountain. The weather was horrendous, and he thought, "This is not fun anymore. I'm cold, I'm now wet, and I'm also hungry, and I'm not happy, so I'm going to go back down again." But he went off the wrong side of the mountain, because he did have a compass with him, but no map. And he had a phone, and together they were useless. It's okay having a compass, but if you don't know the route, if you don't know anything, it's useless. Anyway, we got him down, and as we were going down into Ben Nevis area on the donkey track, the phone signal came back, and Thomas phoned his dad. I quickly snatched the phone off Thomas, and I had a few words with his dad, as you can imagine I would do. And we arranged to meet at the car park by the pub at the bottom, Well, that's what we did. When we got there, I took Thomas's dad for a little walk on his own and re-educated him in re-educated him in the errors of his ways, let's put it that way. There were 2 dead kids that day. 100% 2 dead kids that day. There was 3 lunatics who should have turned back, who didn't. We kept going. Nobody was coming up behind us. And if we'd have turned back and gone back the way we came and not gone to the north face, there would have been a young lady and a young man on the top of Ben Nevis who would not have made the night. Absolutely, 100%, I guarantee you, they would have not made the night. And nobody would look for anybody until Thomas and his sister wasn't at the caravan later on. That is a true story, and it's outrageous. Why these people go up on top of these mountains without any gear is just totally beyond me. They have no knowledge, no navigational skills, nothing. And they walk up some of the highest mountains in the UK, and they've got a shopping bag with a bottle of Coca-Cola in it and some sandwiches from the bloody Tesco's or Morrison's at the bottom of the hill in Fort William. It's just not on. If you take anything from what I've talked about over the last 2 lessons, you take anything from that, it'll always be safety orientated. It'll always be to make sure that you get home and make sure that you as a group stay together and work together as a team, because without it you could end up like Thomas and his sister, lost, alone, no clothes, no protection, no food, no water, and nothing but death just around the corner. There were 2 very, very lucky kids that day. Don't become a victim yourself. Get out there, practice, enjoy it, but do not ever take it for granted that you know exactly what you're doing when you don't.